Hi, everyone. Today on Sales Confessions, we're joined by someone who blended creativity, hustle, and reinvention into a truly non-linear sales journey. Nick Pryor is crushing sales development at Mountain, where he helps brands turn connected TV into a performance channel. But his path here was typical at all. He's gone from running escape games in Escondido to wholesale real estate to now blending AI powered lead gen with streaming ad tech. Nick brings a unique mix of entertainment, entrepreneurship, and tech savvy to the world of B2B sales. He's not afraid to get experimental, whether that's with personalized outreach, prompts, or performance driven storytelling. Of course, some mistakes were made along the way, and I'm really excited to bring him on today for our sales confessions. Nick, thanks a ton for being here. And yeah, are you ready to confess?
I'm 100% ready, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're stoked to have you on. So, as I like to mention always, right, confessions are interesting because I do think we learn more from our collective mistakes than we do from bragging about our successes. Um, you had mentioned some really amazing stories that I think people can relate to, a lot around, cold outreach. And yeah, would love to hear what you're open to share with the folks today.
Yeah, totally. So my confession just has to do with a little bit too much of maybe an eagerness on my side, to be honest. What it came down to was kind of early in my tenure at Mountain here. I was having my sequences and email cadences and calls that I was creating to reach out to certain higher ups in kind of the marketing field for different brands. It just had way too many steps to them, to be honest. And so much so, it got to the point where I had a CMO for one of my accounts go out of her way to find the CMO for my company and track down his email address and respond to one of my emails, just kind of laying into me about the frequency and a little bit of the lack of personalization and things like that. And so that was a humbling experience for sure. Luckily it didn't, get me into much hot water on this end, but it was a learning experience for sure of just slowing things down, having more of a human touch to my email outreaches, to my cold calls, things like that. And yeah, it was a valuable lesson to learn for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It is something that I see with a lot of teams where there's so much pressure to hit quota on like doing the numbers, and that's kind of the main leading indicator that we have. And we look at like, are you booking meetings? But I feel like there isn't that much oversight on like the brand impact of like the sequences or like the repetitiveness of the emails that we're sending.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. Yeah, it does seem like there's a gap there, to be honest, and I think a lot of companies handle this from like a different perspective. Some companies might really tighten things when it comes to what types of outreach and even down to the wording that their SDRs can use. And I think there's pros and cons to both sides, whether you're kind of tighten on that or letting the SDRs figure it out on their side. But when you tighten too much, you lose the personalization. You lose the ability to actually, in my opinion, make an impact on the people you're trying to prospect to. But when you make it a little too loose, you can come across issues like in my case, where an overly eager SDR can get on the bad side of a CMO. So
Yeah, it's an interesting balance to think about where like the brand you're trying to portray when you're doing sales development is really that mix of like portraying the brand of the company but trying to factor in your brand as a rep so that can strike a chord. And I think if you only do the brand of the company, that's where you might end up with having a CMO kind of chasing you down to say, hey, like this was lacking personalization. On the flip side, if you just go too personal, it might seem like it's a B2C business.
yeah, exactly. Like everything, it all comes down to balance and trying to strike that right balance there.
Love it. You're very vocal on LinkedIn about experimentation with LLMs, and how it's been automating parts of your outreach. What is a core part of your sales process that today leverages AI, and what kind of advice you would have for people who are looking to embark on that journey?
Um, So yeah, I've been in the I've been just fascinated by the generative AI space since like late 2022, and I subscribe to an ungodly amount of newsletters, and I'm constantly in the space, just very curious about it. So I'd say my advice is just that, having a sense of curiosity to exactly what is going on in the generative AI space and how it affects your industry, how it affects your role, and just experimenting with it. Just go out there, play with the different models that are available, play with different platforms and services that have like generative AI aspects to them, and see what kind of value you can get out of that. Because I've certainly tried a whole bunch. Of different tools, and a lot of them have just kind of fallen to the wayside. But some of them have really provided me a ton of value, and I think I've learned a lot to even get to the point where I'm creating these custom systems or custom GPTs that really help me in my day-to-day life. So yeah, curiosity, just play around with it.
Love it. And is there like one part of the workflow in particular where you found like huge gains by using models?
Yeah, I would say, in all honesty, what it comes down to is I use large language models and generative AI very heavily in both my personal and professional life, and it certainly helped me in individual places here and there. But across the board, what it's actually helped me out with is speed. Just being able to move a lot faster. Do past tasks in just so much quicker of a time frame that allows me to focus on more of the human aspect, connecting with the people, and really trying to make an impact on them in that way. So I'm not getting bogged down by the day-to-day processes and things like that. So it certainly helps out with speed, and it shows up in so many different aspects of my role as an SDR. One example is when I'm cold calling, for example. I mean, within about 10 to 15 seconds of them saying hello, I've built a custom system that immediately gives me just a whole list of very valuable information after doing a quick search on the individual, on the company that they work for, and I'm able to use that as I'm live on the phone with the individuals, talking to them, bringing more of that personalization, helping them feel like, oh, okay, this guy actually knows a little bit about me or my brand, and maybe this is a conversation worth having. Kind of circling back to that issue I had with the CMO of just like, well, dang, this guy's just email blasting me and it's annoying as hell, and I don't want to talk to this guy anymore, versus actually knowing something and bringing value. So yeah, speed across the board to help me relate to people more.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like in this new AI and agentic world, like really velocity is the main differentiator, and it's the main thing that's going to differentiate winners from losers. It's super interesting. And for people who might want to replicate some of the elements that you've built, what is your AI stack today? And maybe like if you can tell us a little bit about how you use some of those elements in there.
Yeah, so I'm using a lot of the state of the art models that are out there from all the main AI labs. So it's ChatGPT's O3 or O4 model, for various different types of research. I'm using Gemini's 2.5 Pro and their VO3 model just to play around and see what the video generation model world is like, and it's honestly mind blowing. I use a lot of Perplexity as well. If I want to do something a little bit deeper, they do really well in that regard. So. And then there's various tools that I use as well that have like a generative AI, excuse me, aspect to it that really helped me out as well. But yeah, what I would say is that some of these tools are just absolutely stellar when it comes to research specifically. For example, I use the reasoning models with the OpenAI O3, O4 Mini and all that to quite a high degree to do multi-layered, multi-reasoning kind of research on a brand when a demo's coming up, or if I want to just know a little bit more about them, so I can really customize my personalization in my emails to them. So yeah, that's just some examples.
Love it. And And I know you mentioned when we talked that you had one tool on your in your stack that you feel is slightly underrated and more people should be using.
Yeah, that is the text expander tool, specifically from textexpander.com. I know Apple's have this feature natively. I like some of the extra bells and whistles that come with Text Expander, if I'm being honest. It's just been so helpful to me in minimizing the amount of time I spend doing very repetitive tasks. You know, as an SDR, I've got emails that I'm sending out, or I've got rebuttals that I'm sending to various different objections that come my way, or you know, something as simple as just typing in my email address when I'm signing into things. You know, with two keystrokes, I have it immediately versus having to type the whole dang thing out. You know, all of that compounds over time and just creates a lot of time saving. So yeah, I would highly recommend people check that out.
Love it. Maybe one last question that was unscripted, but I'm really curious to get your hot take on this. Like, there's a lot of buzz in the industry around AI SDRs and how we're just going to replace the sales development function with these kind of like bots. What's your take on that, and how would you recommend leaders think about it?
Yeah. So yeah, there is a lot of buzz, and I think that's a small symptom of a bigger conversation, or a small part rather of a bigger conversation around just the idea of like AI taking jobs. Period. Right. And I think it's good to have these conversations. I think it's good to consider these things. I would say that for those that are maybe fearful of that, or like in my position of being an SDR, ultimately what it's going to come down to is it, and this is a term I've heard often from people, and I think there's a lot of nuances to it. But I've heard people say it's not AI that's going to take your job; it's an individual that's using AI well that's going to take your job, quote unquote. And you know, I've had some experiences with some of these AI SDR platforms, and they're really great. They're really fascinating, but a lot of times they're built in mind to have an actual human in the loop, a human that is a part of the process, that is bringing the human factor to it. Because at the end of the day, we're social creatures, right? We want to engage with people. It's the reason why we watch episodes and podcasts and shows and things like that. Is like we want to feel that connection, even in, you know, bottom line, you know, hard business decisions. So what I would say is ultimately, back to what I said previously, be curious about these systems, these platforms, whether you're a leader, you're an SDR, or whatever your role might be. Engage with them, use them, experiment with them, and use them to make your productivity better, make you quicker, and ultimately make you more valuable in terms of just the output that you put out there.
Yeah, I love that. I think I really like the idea of saying that we're social creatures, and that there's a risk if you go like full on 100% AI, where you're completely losing that part, which is a core component um, of the job of sales.
Certainly. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
agree.
Right. Well, awesome. Thanks a ton for sharing your confessions and your thoughts on this. It was super interesting. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Honestly, just through LinkedIn. Look me up, Nicholas Pryor. You know, connect with me, send me a message. Happy to chat about almost anything, but especially AI stuff. So definitely hit me up.
Love it. Definitely go give Nick either a follow or connect on LinkedIn. There's some really good content that he's posting out there, and it's cool because it's very it's tangible and concrete elements. So I love that. Again, Nick, thanks a ton for being on the show, and until next time, take
Awesome.
care.
Thanks. Take care.